My name is Ed Rogers. I am the second president of the Armory Foundation. The first one was Reed Armentrout. There's a board. We're a nonprofit group. We have memberships that you can become a part of the membership. We have a wonderful amount of volunteers. And when you drive by the Armory, the volunteers take the credit, as this place is still here. And we hope that we have done justice to the memories that everyone has of this place, especially now since it's kind of been revitalized, repurposed as a banquet ballroom that you can rent. And we have a website where you can just Google it if that word is still around in 100 years. But yeah, I'm very honored to be a part of this and of your video. It's really nice.
I'm ready to go. Roll.
All right. So Hardin County Armory, it was going to be built to actually save the county money, believe it or not. There was a couple lots that were going to be used for free. They were going to give them the lots, but it was on the south side of town. That was a big no-no. All the North End people said, no, we can do better. They went with the St. John's lot, which is the lot that we sit on here. Originally, the Armory, the proposed budget in 1893 was $11,000. Of course, the lot ended up costing, I think, around like $1,500, maybe $2,000. So there you've taken that money off the top. They wanted it to be an armory that the county could be proud of, because at that time we had Company I and Company G that used to meet at a place called the Rink. And I'm not quite sure where this rink was. I've been told, well, there was a rink out at Lake Idlewild, but I'm not sure that's where it was. And the thing about it is, when you read the old newspaper, they just assume you know where everything is, which is funny, and I guess we kind of do it today too. But the people in the North End, these giant houses, of course this is the Victorian age, it's the Gilded Times, lots of dances, quote, quote, balls happening. They wanted a hardwood dance floor that could accompany an orchestra. Company G and Company I was that orchestra. They had an in-house orchestra. And if you look at the picture, and you can get it later, you can tell that some of the band members were in the picture. And it was neat, because the picture is not segregated, it's integrated, which is great.
In the late 1800s.
In the late 1800s. I mean, you know, the race thing wasn't happening here in Hardin County as far as this company, the two companies were involved. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. When they built the place, it ended up costing roughly around $28,000, I've seen, 26, depends on where you read it. The balance of which was raised by these Northern End people. And they wanted a gallery, and the gallery was the balcony, interior balcony, of which, when they had their illustrious gala events, people like you and I could pay a penny, 2 or 3 cents. We could go on the balcony and watch. And you have to remember that there was money here because of the two railroads that crisscrossed. There was money here because there was no 16th Amendment. 1913 hadn't happened, where income tax was not taken out. So that extra 25% of your check, the extra 25% or 30% of your business stayed here. I mean, if you look around, the churches, that was the time to build churches here. We had a giant German influence, which, you know, Burkhart, the guy that built this, which was actually Catherine Lundy's grandfather, who was a 5th grade school teacher at Hardin Central, that was her grandpa. And the stonecutters was phenomenal. And originally this place was supposed to stand alone, and it did. It was before the little grocery store was built over here. That was the AMVETS post, which was, you know, the Eagles, various things, which was really cool, I think. But, you know, it was a take charge time. and they did take charge with the lot. It had to have a hardwood maple floor, and it did. And at that time, it had a steam sauna downstairs. It had what they called a rifle range, but it was probably more of a target pistol thing. 2 giant boilers that would heat the old sheriff's department, which was built in 1870, 20 years before.
To the north.
So there was a small tunnel that went to that. I heard you could not walk through that one. But then our old courthouse down here, before the one that was built in the 1913, 14, 12, there was a tunnel that ran under the road, and you had to stoop to get in it. And it wasn't very wide, just held the pipes, and there was very little that you could do in the wintertime unless the boiler was on, because the tunnel was just too hot to get there.
Okay.
Other than that, they built the place. Company I&E were on either side. They almost have a fire. To dry the paint, they opened up all the coal stoves in this front part, and one of them had a blowdown and blew coals over, and just happened to, by luck, someone stopped in to see how the paint was drying in the plaster, and it was on fire. They stomped it out, and that was in 1894. But it was pretty cool. It took less than a year to build, which is neat. Really, it was the place to be. Had a shower, a running shower. Had some of the first toilets in the city. What else did it have? I mean, the love for this building and the outpouring of it was almost like it was everybody's home. And one of the articles in either the Republican or the Democrat talks about how the fellows of both companies would meet on Sunday to smoke their meerschaum pipes and to talk about the week's happenings at the disgruntledness of their wives, which is always great stuff, but pretty neat. The Armory was for the Victorian Bulls. After that, it became a place for basketball competitions. And I heard, and basketball was new. I mean, it did not have a lot of rules, and we had the rough and tumble people from the ironworks. I mean, big guys, right? It got so rough in the teens and 20s, before the schools started to have basketball, or the Granges started to have basketball here, or the church leagues, that I've been told, they had to hang up chicken wire fences in front of the seating along the sides, because these guys would just throw the ball, hoping it would tear through the other team's hand to the other big guy across the way. And there were people getting hurt in the gallery, right? So they had to hang these wires up. And I don't know if that's true, but boy, it makes for good entertainment.
Right.
It does. Then, basketball, it became, there's one postcard that said it was an athletic club, some way to raise extra money, to keep the doors open. That was in the teens, 20s. Then after that, I think the school always used it, because the high school then was where our library is now, the Mary Johnson Library. And they would walk down, of course, boys would walk down for their gym class, girls would walk down for theirs separately. Really neat. I mean, it was just a great building to have. They built onto the side of it, sometime at the turn of the century. They built a grocery store, and you're like, really, grocery store. But if you think about it, they'd have 1,000, 1,500 people. There's no television, there's no radio. It's live and in person. You went to the opera house, the other opera house, movies were just taken off. But when these people left the Armory, they'd hit the grocery store, because other than ice boxes, dude, you're buying pretty fresh stuff unless you're canning it yourself, which is, pretty cool. Fast forward, the fire. We have Company G and I kind of fade away. Company E is taken over. The Hardin County militia was turned into the Ohio National Guard. By then it was just the Ohio Guard. And I mean, you're talking kids 15, 16 coming in. the doors always seemed to be open. There was always an officer around, if not, a non-com running the joint. They would actually sell popcorn to raise a little extra money for the company during all these events. It was just a wonderful time. There used to be a fire escape on the backside before, the fire, because everyone freaked out when the t-shirt factory in Chicago burned. So that's when all of the fire escapes started going up all around town. I mean, they were non-existent for a long time. And in fact, our fire escape on the other side used to be a window before the fire. And now, now it's an emergency egress. But you didn't have lawsuits. You didn't have people harping. It was a good time to live. Mm-hmm. And it was. I mean, it was exciting. It was great. Anything that you wanted to do downtown, you could find. I've also been told that around Prohibition, to make it easier to get to all the haunts that were in about every corner's basement, was a downstairs bar. Way cool. I've been told by people that you used to be able to circle the square and never touch a street or get your feet wet. And that...
So through buildings or tunnels? Or
yeah, under the streets and stuff, which I think is just awesome. I mean, if you tried to do that today, they'd lock you up.
Yeah.
But the fire, I've heard... You want the fire now?
Yeah.
All right.
You can talk about the cannon too.
Oh yeah. Pretty neat. If anyone out there has any pictures, not talking postcards, I'm talking photographs. There is a photograph of the Armory, freshly done, did not have the balcony over the door, but the GAR Circles cannon barrel was still mounted on the cannon. And that was kept here in the Armory in inclement weather. And then on Decoration Day, what we call Memorial Day now, it was brought out, shot off down by the courthouse to mark the beginning of the decoration of graves. And it wasn't just all for soldiers' graves, mind you. It was for every grave. And so they'd shoot it off. They'd have a big doings down at the courthouse, because the courthouse was the people's house. It wasn't what it is today, where it's full of services. Your services or your responsibility was yours. You didn't depend on the government. So it was a free society. It was really cool. And then they'd follow the cannon out with the two horses to the GAR circle, drop the barrel, or the whole artillery piece really, off in front of the statue that's out there. And that mausoleum, it was built by the same people that built this, same sandstone. Sadly enough, they're going to tear it down.
Are they?
Yeah, unless some people...
We need to get that.
You need to go get that quick. There's nothing wrong. It needs a roof. So did this place.
The church inside Grove Cemetery.
Yeah. Because there wasn't a funeral home. I mean, the funeral, you laid to rest there in your house, or then they took you out there and they had services in there. Because that's why it's so nice. I think that was like $2,500 to build.
Wow.
And this was, 26. I don't know. But other than that, the artillery piece is out there. It's pretty neat. The sister or brother of that artillery piece is down at the state capitol, because the guy that brought him back was a big shot in the state. And remember, with Harding's administration, Durbin, who lived up on Rish Street, which is a really cool house,
So we've heard.
was the Department of Treasury head. It was the Secretary of the Treasury. Guy from Kenton, Ohio. Pretty neat. I don't know, but that's not Armory.
Democratic Registrar under Roosevelt too, right?
Well, I don't know.
He was.
Yeah, so there you go. The fire. Though everybody always talks about the fire. People in Alger and McGuffey could see the glow at night. I will do this as kindly as I can to the Kenton Fire Department. After World War II, of course, we start getting lots of surplus things. It seems that every story I've heard comes back to Herbert Radcliffe and his brother Harold. One was a sergeant, one was the colonel here. Couple guys, I've been told the one Radcliffe brother was downstairs cleaning rifles in the basement, along with the coal and the 2 boilers, probably smoking at the time because it was, it was, what, December?
December 2nd.
Yeah. There was a coal boiler stoker that had an apartment in the upper south side of the upstairs. He and his family had a daughter that I know of, and she was the one who told me. Peggy McVitie, I believe, was his daughter. She's gone now. I believe that's who. I don't know. If I'm wrong, write it in the comment section under this. But when it started, it wasn't a big deal. Smoldering downstairs, hey, how do we get it? There was one way up and down from the basement, okay, at that time. Because you would come in the front doors of the Armory pre-fire, and there were steps that went up either side to the balcony. And then under those steps, under one was going to the basement. The other one, I think, was a sort of a custodial closet, I've been told. There's no plans I have ever found pre-fire. So there's only one way down, which is nice because when the fire department was finally alerted, they come up, mumble around, finally do something you don't do, and they cut a giant hole in the floor, in the hardwood maple floor, because people were arguing, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, the Army's on fire, you gotta do it. Lots of disarray. They cut the hole in the floor to allow the spinning thing to go down that was on the end of a hose, is what I've been told. They have their trucks parked over here on Carroll Street. What trucks there were, I mean, they're not giant things, right? When they cut the hole, they lower the thing in. If anyone's seen the movie Backdraft, you've got an oxygen-starved fire in the basement. They cut the hole. They all look down in it, and guess what? Whew! One poor fellow's lifted off of his feet, right? His helmet goes flying. The fire erupts downstairs. The thing on the end of the hose burnt off. So this hose is just slopping around the inside of the Armory. It gets away from them quite fast. They bring the hoses in, they're spraying it in. Well, needless to say, they're trying to cool the outside facade off. They're busting out windows, which is actually letting in even more and more oxygen. And actually, this place is designed for no air conditioning. And at the top of the old roof, there were 9 or 12 windows on the top. And it was cool because when they had a basketball game or anything, they'd leave the front doors open, which originally were giant sliding doors that encompassed the entire archway out in front, because it normally didn't save the Armory until after the fire. They'd open it all up, and it was like with the big turret, things on the outside, the wind would channel from the west and just blow through and up out the windows. And the windows were counterweighted. So there was these levers, and you'd switch these levers around and go whoonk, and they'd go ponk, 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 all the way down. And supposedly worked the same the other way. And it was, and Company E was always in charge of opening it up, making sure it was clean, the whole bit. And they would employ young Company E wannabes. They'd give them uniforms and leftover crap. And it was good. But the fire happened, place is burning, school lets out. The buses are going down Carroll Street, running over fire hoses. So these guys are outside spraying down the north wall and the front facade because they at least want to keep that. And every once in a while the bus would go by because, there's only a couple cops in town. I think this was the time Badge Brown was around. Could be wrong on the time period there, but he was a policeman downtown. But the whole place burns down. The whole thing's gutted. They wanted to tear it down. The veterans some Civil War veterans are still creeping around. World War I and World War II said, no, we had people that left from here that never came back. We're keeping the Armory. And they rebuilt the whole place. Less the balcony in the back, They said no. So they rebuilt it, put concrete everywhere, put a ramp in the back to get to the basement. They were going to park deuce and a halfs down there. Well, they didn't do their geometry right. They couldn't make the thing. So they put 6 or 7 Jeeps downstairs. And this is when it became, I think, the 148th Company E. It was either 148th or 147th. Neil Williams would remember all of this era, if you want to get a hold of him. You know Neil?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then they parked deuce and a halfs on the floor, like 2 or 3 deuce and a halfs back there, on the floor, inside, not in the basement, which was cool because when they thought that the whole Armory was going to collapse in the late 90s, they shut her down because they had to arrange it so both men and women could be stationed here, but it was more or less an excuse to close it because they wanted them by interstates and they didn't want small towns to have armories. I think in case of possible revolt again, you don't want armed people in a small town. But other than that, they rebuilt it, and it still heated the courthouse. When they built the new courthouse, they were too cheap to put a heating system in it, and this place still heated that. So after it was burned, they dug out the boilers, and they had to keep the boilers stoked to keep the courthouse and the sheriff's department heated. So other than that, I mean, it's a great building. Volunteers have done this building. People like, and you'll recognize these names, John Jester. You've got Frank Bondi, Betty Bondi, people like it's a good thing that you're filming this because my memory's starting to go. Estelle Heights, Dora Flowers. I tell you who else. George C. Fang, and names were never my big thing. And these people helped relentlessly. Reed Armentrout actually got the ball rolling. Bob Hubble was the powerhouse at the county level that came in, that kind of kept us on the tracks. Of course, my mom and dad, Ron and Joyce Rogers, my entire family. Doris Williams is still here. She was one of the original people. That's now Doris Bloom. Just a phenomenal group. Marion Cavan and Wilbur Miller, when our electrician went bankrupt, finished the job. You want to talk about the World War II generation pulling through? This guy was in his 80s dealing with electrical inspectors from the state and doing a nice job because they just had to get the job done. They didn't care who was running the thing. We just need to save the Armory. Yeah. And those people did. And they've done a nice job. And I hope it continues on. And hopefully someone that watches this in years to come go, hey, we need to save that building again. Oh, hey, this is pretty cool. As far as 6 Minutes is concerned, when it wasn't Taft came, it was said in the papers that you could tell that Taft was set back because his right-hand man wasn't in attendance when he came here. And his right-hand man, they give the name of him in the newspaper article here in town. And he had the unfortunate rank of Major and the unfortunate name of Butt. So Major Butt was last seen being a stoic American gentleman helping ladies and children on board the Titanic get into lifeboats. And that's pretty cool. That was always a big thing when the Leonardo DiCaprio movie was out, that we could tie the Armory to the Titanic. Other than that, look, he's giving me. I told him he wouldn't have enough time. Dude, I do 52 minutes a day for kids that don't want to hear it. So this is pretty easy. But yeah, I like the Major Butt story.
So in the article I have about the Armory burning, it said that the crowds
all gathered
many
round.
people, yeah, and the firemen actually turned the hoses on the crowd to keep them back.
That I don't know. I've never heard that.
That's what the Democrat says.
But I mean, can you trust a Democrat or can you trust a Republican at this time? You're not talking MSN or Fox News, but no, all the shopping crowd came down. I mean, it was a giant spectacle. What else you got going on?
It said that there was even a man that ran into the bowling alley to save his bowling ball from getting burned.
Here's something. They got paid once every 3 months. And the money had just came in prior to the fire, and it was in the safe that's here now that I think he took a picture of. And it mysteriously gone. It left. Along with when the guys would go in to like bring stuff out, they'd lay it on the sidewalk, and they said as fast as they could lay rifles on the sidewalk, the fastest they left.
Oh, wow.
So, because, everything inside the Armory burned.
Yeah.
But, whether that's true or not, I don't really care, because it's really a good story, and I've appreciated all of the people who have told me these stories through the years. I hope I've done you justice. I really have, because it's really been an honor. This is a great building. It's a great town. It's a great county. I love it. Other than
Thank
that,
you for keeping those stories alive.
you guys are keeping them alive, not me. I can barely remember names.